right, welcome to the channel, Emily.
Thank you.
Let me just start with the question, what does it mean to be a management consultant?
Oh, yeah, that's not the easiest question ever, but management consulting is basically like, first of all, consulting is about helping others achieve something. So it's basically a job where you get hired in from someone else to do a job for them. So it could be another company that needs help with whatever, environmental calculations, and then you come and help them. And then management consulting is more focused around how that company works and how it's structured. So it could be about helping them with their strategy or helping them with their leadership or their organization or processes or something like that, more connected to how they work and not so much on like other types of things. And being a management consultant is basically being the person who can help them achieve all of those things.
Okay, and you're you've studied engineering.
Yeah, I have.
And because one thing I see that most people that are management consultants within most fields are usually engineers. But what makes an engineer capable of doing this job? Like why is it good to be an engineer as a management consultant?
I guess it's the same thought process in your brain. So like an engineer kind of both want to know how things work and kind of develop how they work. And that's exactly the thought process that you need to be a consultant. You need to find out what does the client want, what is their actual problem, and then you need to develop solutions to fix that problem. So I guess it's both kind of this whole problem solving mentality that you want to know how things work and how to solve them. So that, I guess that's why a lot of engineers become management consultants.
Yeah, because as I know, you can become management consultant with other kind of subjects in your baggage. I think that if you've done some economy, you can also, like in Sweden, it's called civilekonom, they can also become management consultants. And also within some fields, like in medicine, even doctors can be management consultants within their field, kind of. So yeah, it's mostly about you have to have some expert knowledge within a certain field. And for engineers, it's usually maybe expert knowledge in how the structures and processes work and how to solve the problems.
Yeah, definitely. So I totally agree with you. Like it's engineers and like people who have studied some type of business and or economics that become management consultants. And then some other people that have gotten in from their type of niche or expert knowledge that can help with more kind of the expert questions, and then maybe people who are more schooled in traditional management consulting can team up with them. So you have one who is a doctor that's really good at how hospitals work and how the actual practices work, and then you have a management consultant that is more an expert on like how processes and organizations in general work.
And so another thing that's I guess one of the most common questions that I think about, and I've heard a lot of people like, what does actually a management consultant do? And another thing is that we hear so much about these companies, like especially Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey, two of the biggest ones. And I know you work at Centigo, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So what's the hype with management consultant companies? Like, what's the big deal about working, for example, at McKinsey?
I guess it's different for a lot of people, but I would say like the two highest drivers is the salary, because the salary at the MBB firm, so McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, and Bain, they have really, really high salaries. Like the entry salaries in Sweden are basically like 50,000 crowns. And I think they have bonuses on that. So it's really well paid. And then also it's it's status. Like it's a high performing job made for people who have gotten high grades and done a lot of good things. So they get a certain type of status at those type of firms. And like you get really interesting assignments and so for being in at those type of firms because they have a high status.
Yeah. So could it be, for example, that let's say BCG, maybe they get one of the more interesting uppdrag or like contracts,
project assignments.
Yeah, exactly, because they have a renowned name for themselves compared to a smaller management consultancy.
Yeah, I would say so. And a lot of the larger or more like status firms, they often work within strategy, which is also like a really hyped subject within management consulting. So and like because those firms are so big and they are so renowned, they get like the really large clients. So you can be able to work with a strategy at like one of the global firms.
Yeah.
Whereas Centigo, which is mainly just based in Sweden, you don't get like that same opportunity. You can like work with quite large companies with the different types of experts, but it's not on the same scale as those really type of companies.
So you also explained about the salary at these huge firms, but does it differ a lot depending on where you work? Hallå?
Ja, där.
Okej. Does it... Hörde du vad jag sa? Oj, det var min...
Men du kanske...
Ja, det var min internet connection. Vänta.
Ja, jag tänker ta om frågan så...
Ja. Vänta. So, so you told me a little bit about the salary at these bigger like consultancy firms, but does it differ a lot depending on where you work?
Yeah, it definitely does. But you can also say that it differs also in context to how many work hours you do. Like if you start at McKinsey or BCG, you work a lot. And that's like a lot. It's like, I'm not that sure, but it could be like 60 to 80 hours per week. You work a lot, and you also have global staffing at those types of firms. So, well, not now during COVID, but otherwise you're expected to work anywhere in the world also. And that comes with, so it comes with high expectations on how much you work, but you also get rewarded for it. Whereas some other firms like where I work like pretty much regular office hours, maybe just a little bit more. And then also I get paid for that amount of work. So it depends like on the amount of work you put in.
Okay. But why is it that they work so much at these bigger ones? Because I've heard about it. Like, is it because there's so much to do? I mean, why don't they assign like tasks to different people? Or is it just some kind of thing that you have to go through?
I've also been thinking about that too. Like, why don't they just get more people and distribute the work equally between them? But I guess like in a lot of cases, it's better to have one person with a lot of knowledge about the client and the assignment, because like shifting knowledge between people and being a big team, it takes up a lot of time in meetings and like just talking with each other. And that's like the hours for these consultants are paid really, really highly. So I guess they don't want to waste that time on internal meetings. But then on the other hand, like I'm totally for like people should be able to rest. So from that perspective, I think it's kind of crazy, but it's also like I think it's just become a thing. Like you want to like the people who want to work at these firms, they are people who want to like make work their whole life. Because if you work that much, all of your friends, all the people you hang out with is pretty much going to be your colleagues. So it's more about the decision of making work your life and not about so much work-life balance, which is the choice that I made. Like, I want to work and I want to do these types of things, but I also want to start a YouTube channel on the side, and I want to hang out a lot with my partner and my family and my current friends. So it's more kind of a choice that you make if you want to work a lot and like make work the highest priority in your life.
So tell me about the career as a management consultant, like the staircase.
Yeah, like pretty much all consultancy companies have some type of staircase, which is basically you get into some kind of junior position. A lot of people even start before they finish their studies in some type of internship or summer job or something. But then it's basically like a very traditional staircase where you move up a ladder. So you start with some type of junior position, you move on to a more like senior consultant position, and then you probably move up to some type of team responsibility. So you probably have a team with junior consultants with you. And then there are probably some different levels of that. And then you move up to some kind of manager level where you maybe have responsibility for a whole team of people, for a whole client. And then you move up to partner position where you're like responsible for the sales and maybe like a whole client account. And then your salary is very much also dependent on what level you are. And for a lot of firms, the gates between the different roles and the different levels are quite strict. So you might have to have like a certain type of experience, or like you have to have been a project manager running 3 junior consultants with you. Then you're eligible to move up the ladder.
Okay.
So but that's quite different between companies, but most companies have some type of really strict demands on what you would need to perform in order to move up the ladder.
So you told me like that it's, of course, it's different in what kind of projects you do and assignments that you have depending on your level. But just if you would just throw something out there, like what could be a regular work day or work week, like in the actual stuff that you're doing?
Yeah. So for a more junior person, one of the first things that I guess is quite regular that you do is that you have some kind of project manager support role, so that you have someone who is a project manager for a project at the client, and your job is basically to support them, which can mean that you're the one that are taking meeting minutes at all the meetings with the client. You're you're helping them with all the presentation material that you need to present to the client. And like a lot of people actually have quite a lot of client interaction. So it could be that you have some type of a partial project manager responsibility, like the project manager has a lot of things to do, and then you get certain parts of it to run with a client. Like, can you make sure that this person does that thing? And then another thing that is quite common to do, especially in the beginning, is to have some kind of analysis role. So you're responsible for gathering data and processing that data. It could be for a client like doing a competition analysis. How do they perform versus their competitors in a certain area? Or it could be like searching or what are the trends in these areas, because that's also one of the things that you're looking at in the beginning of most projects. Like, if we're going to do this, what are the trends in the market? And that's quite a common thing that a junior consultant can be staffed to do.
What is the, so now I understand more like what the actual stuff is that that you can do, but what could also be the type of projects? Like, of course it can be anything, but once again, if you would just throw out an example, like what do customers need, or like clients need help with, for example, when they look for a management consultant at Centigo?
So in general, in consulting, like a lot is about, like the most traditional thing that people think about within management consulting, that is strategy. Like a company is going to set their strategy for the next 4 years. What are they going to do? So that's a really like classic management consulting project. It could also be like, I was in a project where it was at a construction material producer. So they had merged 2 companies, and they also had 2 different sales departments that they were going to merge together. And they had pretty different cultures and a lot of different people. So that project was about, okay, so what type of roles and responsibilities should this new type of sales organization have? What should the organization design look like? Should we have, should it be based around geographical area, or should it be based around what type of clients they have? And then what could the processes be in this type of project? So like, who should interact with who? So basically all around how they should be working at this new department. So that's also quite a classical thing. And then it had a lot of assignment has a lot to do with like KPIs. So what should a company follow up on, or how should they increase their profits, or things like that. Centigo, where I work, we're quite a lot focused around IT. So we work a lot with like implementing new IT platforms. So like a lot of companies still work in Excel with a lot of different things, like a lot more than you would think that they do. And then a typical assignment for us could be like, okay, but what type of system do they need to replace this with? Which are the players in that market? Which ones, like helping the client choose which one, and then actually implementing that system and all that it is around it. Because a lot of times that's also has a lot to do with what processes you have, and which people do interact with this system, and what type of data do we need to have in it. So it's a lot of like detective work, and like finding out what the client wants and what they need, because sometimes they don't actually know what they need, and then finding a good solution for them to help solve that problem.
Okay. So what are the key characteristics of a good management consultant? Like what, or rather, what's needed in their personality and their capabilities?
Yeah, I guess it's a lot different, because like there's a lot of different ways that you can go within consulting. Some people are really good at selling, so they become like a selling partner in the end. And that's like one of the key capabilities for a consultant, is to be able to sell new projects to the clients. But that's obviously not what we're measured on in the beginning, because we need to deliver value to that client. So I guess like a lot of curiosity, and you don't, I mean, you have to not think that you know everything, because every client is unique and every situation is unique. So you need to be able to find out what their actual needs are. So you need to be open-minded and curious and ask a lot of questions. And then you really need to be good at communication, because a lot of the work is actually just communication, and being able to get people to come along with you and like basically sell that new idea and make people agree on it. So curiosity, open-minded, and communication. And then also, in general, you need to be able to get people to do things. And probably you need to be quite analytical, because a lot of the work is also being able to handle data in all different forms. Like sometimes data is just a sheet with like data, but it's also about handling the information that the client gives you and being able to process that into information that's understandable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things, but I think I get the idea. So you have to be analytical, you have to be able to, I guess you have to be a doer, like you have to be able to work and just do stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Also,
yeah, and like a lot of these things like communications and stuff you learn during the job. Like no one expects you to be an expert when you begin.
Exactly.
But I believe it's more about like the personality and not so much about being an expert in your actual field.
I guess
especially not in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's something that's becoming increasingly important in all fields right now, that actually I think that no one in our generation is actually an expert. It's mostly like you have the ability to look up information.
Yeah.
And so that's a personality thing. And that's really important. So one thing is that, basically we've talked a lot about the management consulting companies, but actually you are a consultant in a management consultant company. So what is the benefit of being part of a company and not just doing it yourself?
Well, I would say like in the beginning, and like for me who has worked 2.5 years now, it would be really hard to do a consulting company by myself, because I don't have the expertise and I don't have the experience, and I like frankly don't have the contacts in order to like reach out to the clients. So being a part of a company gives you the possibility to have nice assignments and have a team with really senior people that you can learn a lot from. Like senior management consultants, if anywhere where you interact with them, like learn a lot of things, because they know so much about all these little things, like how to have a workshop and how to have a good meeting, and like it's so many of these small things that you can like get from them. So it's both like getting an actual steady salary by having someone else who actually gets the clients, and it's also about having a team where you can learn from others and like not be so much by yourself, because it is a hard job. And even if you're out at the client, most times you're never going to be an actual part of that client. You're always going to be the consultant, and you're always going to be regarded a little bit different than their actual employees. So having a consultant team with you gives you more of that kind of belonging.
Yeah, okay. So stability in salary, but also in clients and in senior, like that you can get help, basically. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think honestly that's the questions that I have, because for my audience I think that's a good level to start at. So if you're like, if for some person that is thinking about going into management consulting, I think this is the things that you want to know. So what's the differences between different companies? What do you actually do? How is the salary? And it's international, as you said, that you can travel. Sometimes you maybe have to travel. And you also said what kind of person or personality that you think would fit as a management consultant, basically.
Yeah, I would like to send a message to everyone that is looking into management consulting companies, because a lot of people they're just looking at like McKinsey, Bain, and BCG because they're like top of the top. But when you're actually choosing a management consultancy company to work with, I think that you should consider and ask around, like, what are the actual work hours? How much are you expected to work? And does that align with how much you actually want to work? Because a lot of people don't make it like more than 2 years at these firms where you work a lot, because it's just too hard. And then also, like, what is the policy around like staffing and moving? Is it global staffing? Do you have to travel all the time? And is that something that you want? Or is it a company which has basically clients only where the company is? And is that what you want? Or do you want to travel?
Yeah.
And then obviously, like, what type of assignments you want to do? Does that align with what they're actually working with? And then what's the company culture like? Because unfortunately, some really large consultancy companies have quite a bad culture, and you start by being at the bottom. And well, that can be fine for some. I didn't want to do that, because I don't think that's the way that people should be treated just because they're young. But that's something that you really should look into when choosing different companies. And choosing, like, what type of manager and what type of people you will be working with, because the culture between different companies, both, like, it can differ a lot between the large companies and within the small companies too. But the culture has a really big impact on how your work will be. And that's something that I think people should really consider before choosing what type of company they want to work at.
That's a really good thing to say for people that are thinking about this. So, and you kind of recently started your YouTube channel, and you can maybe promote it, and for people that are interested, and tell a bit about what you're talking about on the channel.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is Emelie Lindström. It's just my name. And I talk a lot about productivity and actually working towards and reaching your goals without maybe working harder, but by working smarter and doing it in a, like, long-term sustainable way. Because I think it's really important that you do things that is good for you, and not is just because someone else thinks it's achievable and that's what success looks like. So it's a place where I talk about all things about that and how to perform better at work while still feeling good. So awesome. Check the channel out if that's something that seems interesting to you.
So thank you for doing this talk with me.
Perfect. So thank you for having me. Everyone, if you're not already subscribed to Sky, you really should.
And vice versa.
Yeah.